This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Well, it's allergy season, and I know that some of you must be suffering like I have been as well, and that has affected my voice a little bit, and you might notice that here this week in this episode, and I apologize, but it's hopefully going to be getting better. I've got nowhere to go but up from here because it's been down for quite a while. Anyhow, as we also approach our 1000th episode, and we're still quite a ways away, but it's going to be getting here sooner than later. I have talked with hundreds and hundreds of friends over the last 15 years while I've been doing this podcast, and there are so many more people who are friends of mine that I really would like to have on the podcast, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get around to all the rest of them that I really have in mind, but I'm going to try the best I can, and that includes having to travel if I necessarily have to go and chat with some of these people. But also, I should take advantage of those who are just literally in my backyard. One of whom is our guest this week, Mr. Brian Brushwood, who actually does live here in Austin. So I had traveled over to his compound where we had a chance to visit. And one of the reasons I wanted to have him on was not only has he been a longtime friend and actually someone that I consider like family. He is one of my boys, and I love him so much. I really do enjoy my time spent with Brian and his wife, Bonnie. It's just always a wonderful time, and he's such a great family man that he's grown into, but he's also been so successful along the way. Many years ago, when he was looking for an intern to travel with him, he had selected my son, who learned how to eat fire and actually had gotten his some credit while he was at Texas A&M in his he was taking recreational parks and tourism services, and so he was able to convince his instructor that he could go out on the road for a semester with Brian, and so he did. And so we paid Texas A&M. So I kind of feel like that again. I indirectly had paid Brian for helping my son here those few months. But anyhow, that was just a great time, and they bonded together. And also, that was the beginning of something that had that turned into Scam School and some World's Greatest Con, a lot of other things that they had done while they were on the road that they had so much fun doing back in the days when Brian was working on the college circuit. He's not doing that anymore, but not only that, he has evolved from one thing to another, and he has become quite the social guru, and he has many faces that he has presented over the years and been successful in doing things not only in the social media but also on television and elsewhere and on the internet. And so I would implore you to go and check out some of the many things that he's been involved in and still doing, including Scam School, the World's Greatest Con, Night Attack, the Modern Rogue, golly, so many other things. And he really is a go-getter and someone who can help elevate your success into another level if you ever wanted to employ him as a consultant. I know that some others, even such as David Copperfield, have asked him to help. Well, anyhow, I'm really excited about getting a chance to introduce my guest here this week, and we had just a great conversation there in his compound here in Austin. So please welcome my guest this week, Mr. Brian Brushwood, here on The Magic Word. As we rapidly get closer, I should say, to 1,000 episodes, there are some people that I don't want to overlook. I feel, we've got like 50 episodes to go, and each and every one of them we've had in the last 950 episodes have been very important, and I've enjoyed talking with each and every one of the people who are with me. I've had several people who have been good friends and others that I've been promising to myself to get to, and I know that you will enjoy our conversations. Some of them you know, some you don't know as well, but some all of them, after you get to hear them, then you will have made a new friend, certainly. And this is somebody that most of you know within the magic community. He's been around then for a long time. Actually, had many years ago been working on the college circuit. And he then also used my son, Nick, for his first year as an intern when he was in college. So it was kind of funny from the standpoint that I felt like we were paying A&M, Texas A&M for his college education, and then also paying Brian for this then also. So, because he was getting the benefit of what Nick was able to help him, but they both learned a lot and had a great time and forged a friendship that has been everlasting since then. And this guy I've known again since he was probably in high school and back in the TAOM days. And I'm so happy and proud to have him as a friend and someone who has continued to work in the social media. I remember one time we were all in Las Vegas and David Copperfield had called on him saying, you're the social media king. I need to have you come and help me with some ideas on how that I can incorporate some things perhaps in my show and then beyond. I'm going way off of base over here, but just a lot of things that he has created, which has included Scam School, been on several television shows and had his own life hacks series on TV. There's been the Modern Rogue, a lot of really cool stuff. And I think is Night Attack something new?
No, Night Attack is the comedy podcast. It's gone through a lot of names. It's kind of like the Doctor on Doctor Who. It's like we keep changing the name, making a new face for it.
So anyhow, I just wanted to introduce somebody to you. And again, I'm proud to have him as a friend and that he's taken some time finally away from his very, very busy schedule. And he's a very great family man. And please welcome Brian Brushwood. Hi, Brian.
Congratulations on nearly 1,000 episodes, man.
Thank you.
That's a milestone.
Well, as you would know, because you've done these for a long time too.
Yeah, it's one of those where you take your eyes off it and all of a sudden you look up, you're like, well, where did that lifetime go?
That's a good way of putting it. It's exactly right. You think, well, I'm just going to, keep doing what I'm doing. And then before long, you look back and you've got a library or archive of something,
Well, one of the things I like so much about tuning in, there was one moment early on, I don't know if you know this about the magic community, but they could sometimes be a little bit gossipy and prickly, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And there was some time, I think it was a credit related something or other, but it was so great to tune into your podcast and listen to you chatting with Banachek. And it was about whether or not the provenance of something was appropriate or whatever. And Banachek said, the story was blank. And then Banachek was like, that doesn't sound like Brian Brushwood. And then things got refined and then it became more congruent with what the way I remembered it. And he was like, that sounds right. And I don't know. I think that you being that steady heartbeat of for a brief moment, the whole world goes away and it's just this conversation. You have a knack for that consistency throughout time. Like I'll be really curious 100 years from now, what the podcast will look like as an artifact of this 10, 15 year cycle.
Well, I'm curious as to what will replace digital currently.
We're in a wobbly time right now. Isn't it strange?
Yeah. Talk about Doctor Who.
I heard recently a lot of names for it, but my favorite right now is people are calling it, for creators, the abundance crisis, which is such a strange way to think about it. But in an age where it used to be the trapping of polish were a good marker for quality, and a lot of humans had to work together to cause a thing to happen. So in general, it was probably not a waste of your time, and you would not end up feeling like a sucker after watching it. But now, all of those trappings of quality are exactly like, think about an email 4 months ago or 4 years ago. If I sent you an email that had a tightly organized list with custom emojis down next to the side, you would think, oh, wow, Brian really took a lot of time to think about what he's saying. But now, at a glance, we know this is garbage. Somebody pressed an easy button. A robot did it. And so now I find myself doing things that 10 years ago would seem like opposite day advice, like going live every day for an hour. And because in this wave of everything being so artificial, I want one thing unambiguous, is like the human is there, because I'm convinced, maybe this is colored by all the work with World's Greatest Con, is all humans want is the connection and approval of other humans. And those moments that we realize that we're standing alone in a room, I'm fond of saying nobody's made happier when they find out that they've been talking to a robot the whole time. Like, nobody's thrilled. And so likewise, I think that nobody wants to be the sucker. And so I'm very bullish in the next 10 years on in-person events, about being there live. I mean, I've been going to a lot of conventions and making sure to maximize that one-on-one time with people. In many ways, it feels a throwback to the 1960s, where a show can be good and then evaporate and then be gone. And everybody, there's only the legends. Not everything is recorded.
Right. That was just art for art's sake, basically. And it was a one-off kind of a thing that you would perform. And now it seems like that it stays out on the internet forever.
Well, but now there's just so much noise that signal doesn't ring as strong.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like for example, Scam School, part of the reason it made a dent when it did was because it overperformed in levels of polish during the emerging landscape of YouTube, right? It was multi-camera, high-definition shoots in the field with authentic humans who didn't expect to find themselves in the middle of a production shoot or what have you. And then meanwhile, nowadays there are cameras everywhere, and nobody's there's no performance art to it. It's de rigueur, you know? It's like, do you really want to pull out? My daughter admonishes me for taking photos of things.
Well, I don't see so many pictures like on Facebook of food as what we did before. Have you noticed that also?
Well, I think because to our generation, just media was precious at all, you know? Like, it was, what's the first thing you said when you got a Betamax camera and shot Uncle Johnny there?
Yeah.
You'd be like, look, I'm on the TV. Right. That was a big deal. And of course now it's the dumbest, nobody cares. I remember being so thrilled because Scam School was on the back of an airplane seat in Virgin America.
Wow,
and now it's like, what does that even mean? Anything could be on the back of a seat.
Yeah, well, that's true too. There have been so many different things in different iterations. Again, starting back with Scam School and then going to the World's Greatest Con that you've got then right now. And the World's Greatest Con's been going for 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, we're starting to really pick up the speed on it. We've figured out, this is the other side of the coin of the abundance crisis, is that it makes it simpler to do the tedious work to create high quality prestige podcasts. And we get to tell more interesting, complicated stories. So I think the most recent episode was a month or two ago, and we got another one halfway finished right now. Okay.
Because the first season was about the Project Mincemeat.
Operation Mincemeat. Yeah. The Allies pulled a con job and got Adolf Hitler to defend the wrong coast.
And what's amazing about that is that you kind of picked up on that early on, and there's been a movie and then even a play that's on Broadway. Of that as well. Have you had a chance to see that by chance?
I haven't. I've listened to the soundtrack. Yeah. It seems to me that the tongue is firmly planted in the cheek. Yeah.
And then after that, then you did one with Banachek, and I like the fact that you kept, coming back and getting some clarification from him and others who were surrounding him in that community who were part of the Project Alpha.
Yeah, that was a different kind of show for us because previously we had told stories that already had been played out in other media, and we wanted to package them sort of like, if you were sitting by the campfire, or as we canonically put it, it's 1:30 in the morning at an Irish pub and it's getting quiet, and then Brian starts spinning a yarn, So it's not really my story or anything. But in that case, Banachek and Mike Edwards had never gone on the record with their boots on the ground, or I'm certain they had gone on the record, but they had never been really thrilled with the versions of the stories that had been told before because it didn't encapsulate what it was like from their perspective. Mm-hmm. And I'm so thrilled that they seem pleased with our understanding of it. And as a matter of fact, this upcoming summer, in Buffalo, New York at, I believe it's CSICon. We're going to be on stage for the very first time.
The three of you, and Mike Edwards and Ben.
Yeah.
That'll be very cool.
Yeah.
I talked with Mike Edwards a while back when I was out in Phoenix and for one of the episodes. And things change because even when Banachek will tell me, well, we got something in the pipeline right now for a movie, or there's a script that is being written, or Barry Levinson has purchased the rights for this. And it's like, you get kind of hot thinking, okay, this is going to be great. And then it kind of fizzles out. But that's the way things are, I'm sure, as you recognize in Hollywood, with any time you're trying to do some sort of a TV show or something. Like the thing that you did, which was the life hacks.
Yep.
What was that like? And try to pitch that.
So originally conceived of as The Secret Knowledge of Brian Brushwood as a title, which basically is like, as a magician and mischievous, thinker around corners, you sort of see everything different. Everything from the way people line up to go through things to, why is that countertop that color? Because statistically, orange sells better than magenta in the North versus the South and all that stuff. But through iterations, the feedback, because we had been pitching Scam School as a TV show, the feedback from Hollywood was always needs bigger everything. The stakes are just a drink at the bar. You need to make it huge. So it's like, okay, well, what if Scam School times 1,000? Then I'd be improvising a bomb, blowing up a house, faking my death, starting a new identity. And so we built it out that way. And the name went through many iterations. My favorite was How to Cheat at Life, but it ended up on Hacking the System, which got 2 specials and then a full season. And at the time, when things go through standards and practices, National Geographic is a fascinating institution because they take very, very seriously their reputation. So everything had to be double-sided, verified for authenticity and truth. Mm-hmm. So all the way to the fact that the opening line, I'll never forget looking at the script, the opening line says, "I'm standing in a parking lot in Los Angeles," and there's a handwritten note from an attorney that says, "This seems reasonable." And it only got more complicated from there. So a lot of stuff was, the more dangerous stuff got axed along the production stuff. And so I'm very proud of where things ended up. It's a little bit safer than I had originally envisioned it. But luckily, when they didn't renew, there was an opportunity because that same series that did okay in cable television was top 10 on Netflix. And then it went to Amazon where it was top 10. And then it went up to Disney Plus where it was on the front page. And so it's like, well, clearly there's something here. And so luckily, the world was ready for a spiritual successor that was the modern rogue. And so that also was the idea of, all right, so, a decade of Scam School, being at the bar, scoundrel, what would the modern rogue be? The archetypes of gentleman, warrior, and scoundrel. And so for the next 10 years, from, 2015 until around now, lots of low budget Mythbusters, backyard chemistry, blowing stuff up. And then, and now, I don't know if you know this, Scott, something weird happens when you turn 50. you start to think legacy.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to be a little bit more serious about the gentleman aspect. And that's why a lot of my efforts are going into stuff like World's Greatest Con. And also there's a curious moment with AI happening that I've been calling the scampocalypse. Basically, doing World's Greatest Con, I noticed that there are only so many types of ruses. The structure tends to be the same, similar to like in a magic show. You can only make it appear, disappear, transport, et cetera.
Basic things, right?
Exactly. And so the only thing that's changed now is all the bad guys now have a button that creates astonishing amounts of production value.
Correct.
And you also we're coming out of a 5-year cycle since the pandemic of everybody training themselves to perceive that what they see on the screen is real. We all started going to school over Zoom. We do meetings over Zoom and stuff. And meanwhile, the technology, I speculated a couple of years ago that I think deepfake and AI-powered fraud is going to be a monster. And sure enough, Deloitte, the consulting agency, put out a report saying it's essentially doubling year over year. From 2017, it was $2 billion of reported deepfake fraud to now we're at $17 billion a year. And in just 2 years, they're projecting as high as $40 billion and that's, of course, reported fraud, which is going to be a lot bigger. Right. And it feels a little bit at this moment like we magicians, we have a particular set of skills. And it occurred to me when I was 18, the only time I caught a scam in progress was the short change. Somebody was doing the short change raising on me. I had never heard of it at the time, and I was only a couple of months into magic, but I recognized the rhythms, something about you take that, and that's 2 10s, which equals a 20, and therefore, and I was like, this is a magic trick. And then later I found out that we had got taken for $50. And it occurred to me that gut level knowledge, that ability to recognize the rhythms of a scam a mile away, the only way to get there is by actively engaging in deceptive role play. And when I first was pitching Scam School back in 2006, 2007, I was thinking of it as, okay, on the surface, it'll be about cool guy winning free drinks at the bar. Secretly, it's beginner lessons and magic tricks. But even more secret is internalizing critical thinking skills. Now, of course, we're not going to advertise that bottom part. That's the pro-social benefit. But it feels like in an age where you can't trust anything digital at all, that many people for security awareness training are doing kind of defensive driving style classes where they're being taught top down, this is a phishing email, it looks like this or whatever. And I'm like, all my Scam School instincts are saying, this is backwards. Yeah. You just need to gather everyone up and say, we're going to write phishing emails. We're going to, if you ask me, the most pro-social security awareness training on the planet was the Rickroll, constantly getting people to click on the link. It turned out to be never going to give you up. And so that's where the magnetic pull seems to be for the next 10 years for me is basically try to do Scam School writ large in a pro-social way.
Well, I was going to ask you about what you think of the future as far as with, do you embrace AI or are you afraid of it, or are you just going to handle it gingerly? I mean, or go into it full hog? Or?
I don't make any value judgments on a way. The pushback against AI. First of all, no two people are having the same conversation when they're arguing about AI. It is fascinating just listening to everybody. Some people, when I look beneath the surface of what everyone's saying, eventually you get all the way down to, I'm scared, right? And so
Terminator's coming, right?
Exactly. Or I'm scared about what this means for my role, or I'm scared about what this means for my value, or whatever. Yeah. But historically, we've seen this a million times over. Society is rethinking.
Industrialization coming along. Yep.
Yes. And of course, the pushback, the counter is, but this time it's different, and who knows, maybe it is. But, the environmental regulations, there's going to be some upper limit of energy that we spend, and then the market will price it out effectively. And then when it comes to art skills, right now we're all dazzled by the fidelity, but again, think back to how quickly we're realigning our expectations of things and how quickly we're no longer impressed. Things that would have blown us away a year ago, now we're like, oh, AI? Meh.
Desktop publishing would be a good example of that.
That's right. As a matter of fact, I did a little think piece on the font Papyrus. You know the Papyrus
I've used
font?
it. Yep, I've got that downloaded.
Yep. So Papyrus was created in 1982 by Chris Costello. And it's a quirky font that looks like it belongs on a hymnal. And it would have been forgotten to history, except that it got added in the 90s to the default starter pack for Office 97. Okay. It came to Mac OS version in 2003. And for about 5 years, It was one of those canonical drop-down fonts, and it along with Comic Sans were objectively the most interesting of all the fonts.
Yeah.
You had a bunch of borings, and then you had an exotic-looking one and a folksy-looking one.
Non-serif, basically. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And so quietly, everybody thought, ooh, look at me, I'm so clever. I don't need to hire a graphic designer. I've got Papyrus. I've got Comic Sans. And after about 5 years of everybody quietly pressing the easy button, people began to notice. And it was only as Papyrus is going up on the side of a bank that blogs like papyruswatch.com comes out.
Really?
And that is the whole point of the blog, was see Papyrus in the wild, take a photo, and laugh because somebody actually put Papyrus on the side of their Italian restaurant.
Funny.
In fact, they ended up changing the font of Avatar because it looked too much like Papyrus. Even Hollywood got caught with their pants down pressing the easy button. And so I think that we're all on guard against looking like the sucker. So what I advise clients in the marketing world is think very deeply about whether or not you want to get a Papyrus tattoo. Because today your ad copy may look fantastic if it's generated by a robot. But there are artifacts baked into it that we won't recognize for years. That, for example, the way the sycophancy in ChatGPT, nobody saw it at first. Or now the overstatement of like, you didn't just defeat that metaphor, you crushed it beneath your boot heel. You can mock ChatGPT because everyone is acquainted with its style. And I think a lot of people are pressing easy buttons that it's not easy to see right now, but it will be. And so in terms of whether I'm for or against AI, that's not my fight. My fight is, are people protected against people using AI to deceive them with malicious intent? And in that regard, my job becomes the same job it was with Scam School, which is we should all be in a playful, safe environment playing with these tools so that we recognize the artifacts of them when they're used as deceptions against us. That's what I want, is as many people playing the game in as helpful and healthy.
On the same playing field.
Yeah. Well, and nowadays the tools are so cheap. So
that's true.
Whether or not it's art or whatever. Here's another interesting comparison. In 1990, 1991, sampling culture was just really getting started. And, I guess sampling, we think of Rapper's Delight by Sugar Hill Gang using the Good Times loop. Very simplistic. And then around 1991, I think Vanilla Ice drops Ice Ice Baby, which is just, that's just rapping over Under Pressure. This is bad and lazy and I don't like it and it's appropriation and.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
Meanwhile, 10 years later, you have Prodigy releasing Smack My Bitch Up, which is this extraordinary, it's like 75 different samples that are cut, chopped, stretched, flexed, and there's not one moment in that entire song that doesn't already exist in some other media. It's 100%, air quotes, stolen content. But in that 10 years, the audience had grown sophisticated enough to know what was lazy and what was high effort content. And right now we're in the mushy middle where the audience is catching up to know what is high effort, like making a collage, versus low effort, which is just stealing somebody else's bit. That kind of went places. I went all over the place there.
Wow. No, yeah, you did. I mean, I've got 12 teen questions. There are different directions that I'd really like to go. So what type of social media today would be something that you would recommend for people who are looking to promote their own business? I mean, is it TikTok? I mean, is Facebook outdated? I mean, or which ones are good or bad? Or is there something on the horizon or something that you see?
They all have different dialects and different preferences.
Like LinkedIn, I mean, it would be for business.
Yeah. Well, so for example, LinkedIn is performative. Everyone is saying the thing. Not a lot of people are getting real unless they're pretending to get real because that's the job that everyone's looking for money on LinkedIn. Facebook will always prompt you to talk about your feelings. TikTok is like a party manager who has no time for anything less than excellence and then will move the spotlight instantly. TikTok, there's only one star of TikTok, and that's TikTok. TikTok is like karaoke. It's like, oh, you're here because you want to feel like a star? Great. Here's the spotlight. You got 1 million views. Now we've moved on. So it's not a platform. Now, having said that, it doesn't hurt to, if you're on the cusp of getting booked for a magic gig, to be able to point to a video that has hundreds of thousands of views. That will reassure your prospective client that they're probably not going to look like a fool. It's a little bit like when I did the Tonight Show. I don't think anybody saw me on the Tonight Show and said, "Get that guy booked immediately." But I think a lot of people,
because of that crazy straw with the milk up your nose.
Exactly, right? Yeah. But I think a lot of people were about to book me or considering booking me and then saw my demo tape and they're like, "Oh, and he was on the Tonight Show? Sure, go for it." Yeah. So I think that's the side of it. YouTube is an interesting animal though, because YouTube, everyone talks about the streaming wars. We talk about Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix. Nobody whispers about YouTube that quietly has crushed all of them. And not only that, just 1 year ago in March of 2025, YouTube tipped the scales where 51% of its traffic, whereas previously mobile was dominant, 51% now of all traffic on YouTube is televisions in the home. And so now to compete with just the volume of turn on the TV, keep you company, Netflix is having to partner with Spotify to ask for video versions of podcasts. So YouTube does appear to be a meritocracy for the moment, but it is an increasingly cutthroat game. So in terms of trends, what I'm betting on is be an authentic human. Make it easy. If anybody is spending any amount of time wondering if what you're making or showing them is AI, then that's bandwidth that belongs to you and your story. That means there's something about the presentation that you should reconsider so that you want them as little as possible thinking about robots, which of course means do stuff in person. And then absent that, make sure that there are long shots that are unbroken, because for the moment, that's pretty hard for AI to keep track of the longer the shot is. And mainly keep showing up with a consistent and authentic personality that is indisputably human and earn the trust of your audience.
So that way people can relate to you and they want to see and hear more about you and what you're doing, and they're interested in your life.
Or at the very least, even if they're not interested, at least they're not burning any calories wondering how fake whatever it is you're doing is.
I'm thinking of radio personalities. Those used to be really popular, in which you would follow this person. I mean, you'd tune into that station, not necessarily for the music, but you liked in between what the guy or the gal had to say. And that, I don't know if it's still as popular as what it used to be.
I think that's exactly where we're headed. In fact, I've started going live every day, and some people are frustrated because they're like, what even is this? This isn't easy to parse, and it's just very long, but people dip in and dip out. And which, to be honest, I think we're going back to that live on air stuff. And we're at the, again, the abundance crisis, where there's so much of everything that at the very least you could do is show up and be your authentic self consistently enough that everybody can dip in on there.
Is there enough money in that also to make it worthwhile for somebody to do?
I don't know. If you're doing it, if you want to make money to do it, it's pretty, the method for success is pretty distasteful. It's to pick a fight. I mean, that's part of the reason. If you want to be a hit on Twitter, pick a side of an issue and just make the other side mad about it.
So you don't like Drake.
Right. Or red team versus blue team, or it's just, and I suspect all of that is terribly unhealthy for humans in general. So, but that's the way you hit those massive numbers that make ad revenues work. What I'd rather do is provide enough value that that somebody wants to buy your product or service because all things being equal, they already know and like you.
Right, because they want you. Yeah, that's what makes an influencer, I guess.
Yeah, although even then, I find that the word influencer is a loaded term nowadays.
How has that changed from what it was?
Well, I guess it always was, but yeah, I don't know. Somebody called me an influencer, and I recoiled from it. I didn't care for the label.
But to a degree that you are, the people will listen to what you have to say because you have a vast mailing list that goes out, and you tell people about some new things that are coming up for their the Modern Rogue. You've got different things like that are coming out, and so people want to buy that, and so you were kind of influencing their purchasing decisions.
Yeah, well, and certainly when I sell stuff, I try to make it. I think that's part of the label of influencer that's so tricky is that people do content and then suddenly they're talking about this trip, and then you find out near the end that the trip was paid for by whoever. Like all of that laborious, calorie intensive trying to figure out, am I being sold to or whatever, is just so taxing that that's part of the reason that, I created the online store Scam Stuff, Gear for the Modern Rogue. And it's exactly what it looks like. We got a little shack and homespun Americana. We hand stamp everything. And our prices are always going to be more than Amazon or whatever, but you'll know exactly where it's going. I don't know. Maybe it's just getting old, but I'm not, I would caution people when you chase things that scale, everything ends up kind of looking the same, and variability exists at the periphery. You get really interesting, spicy art when it's a small group of people and expenses are low. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. You do have a different demographic, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah.
Going back to kind of the beginning, and want to talk a little bit about working at in the college circuit that you used to do. And I know C.J. Johnson still does a lot of them. It's still an ongoing thing. And I just wonder about how popular that is as opposed to what it was. I know that it has gone through different variations and iterations. And talking years ago with one guy who had retired early from it, saying, I think that I'm going to get out while the getting good. And but he said, I guess there was more still there to go.
Well, from what I've seen, and I've not gone to the conferences and checked in on the marketplace.
NACA's still around, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't been in a minute. But there are those colleges that you've been coming for so many years. You're a beloved institution, and so I keep doing those, and they're a blast. I suspect that, strangely, I think YouTube was the undoing of that cartel style market, because ultimately, if you think about it, you got 2,000 to 4,000 universities nationwide, and about 1,000 to 2,000 of them need to fill monthly event calendars, and they have the budget. VHS tapes are physically large and bulky in the 80s and 90s, and it costs prohibitively expensive to send them all over. So it was cheaper to gather up all the students who are going to make the decision,
right,
and move their bodies for just this rapid fire showcase for 3 days straight of just 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. Now those 20 minutes are all YouTube videos. And so everything, all the questions that people were getting on planes and moving their body to Des Moines to experience can all be answered in an office right there. But then also, why were they even booking events? They were booking events because they needed cohorts of students to have an event to bond around so that they would have shared stories together. But nowadays, through email, through online workshops and all that stuff, they're able to get that as well, or to get their message out about, dating, best practices for dating on campus or all that. There are so many different modalities that the campus activities expense, I think, makes sense in a different way nowadays. So it's been a minute since I've really dialed in on what that market looks like, but it has definitely changed, and I think it's straight up YouTube's fault.
Well, that certainly makes sense, and because that has also influenced people who were working on cruise ships before. It used to be that you would talk to an agent or to the cruise line, or there'd be cruise agents that would handle that. And now it's pretty much, we don't even want to return your phone call until we've seen your demo tape and the one or something on YouTube.
Well, and that's the interesting part now is for the first time, I went to the National Speakers Association, and the stuff I heard there is because now it's so easy to fake a demo reel that makes you look like a super god with a gigantic audience. And this is before even AI. There were people who would have conferences where they would be, 50 speakers. We're all going to spend 2 days together. We're all going to take turns getting on the same stage in a row. It'll look like a TEDx event.
Yeah.
We'll all take turns being in the audience. And now, congrats. We all have, for $10,000 a pop, a very impressive demo reel. Well, guess what? They all look the same. And the agents and managers are like, is this one of those or whatever? So now what I'm hearing is when it comes to keynote booking events, they're like, do you have a 45-minute unbroken recording of you at an actual event doing the actual performance? That's and so all of those are artifacts of people are like, am I actually booking this event that does the thing?
So it's gone from a sizzle reel to the full reel.
That's right. And this is why kind of I'm getting the vibe that everything old is new again.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, I know that everything goes through different evolutions, and that's why I was curious as to whether that this was even still a thing. And I know there are people who are out there. I think Chris Carter, and of course, many other guys are Mike Super and others doing bang up jobs still on the college circuit. But I just haven't heard a lot about it much because most of my friends, like you and CJ, when I talk with you, like you're not doing it, but CJ is. He's still keeping busy. I'm going to visit with him tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, and CJ got wise early on to the shifting trends of like, if you're asking students to get up and get out of their room, what are some reasons that aren't message-based? Because they can watch message-based things in their rooms, but they can't play putt-putt golf and meet somebody in their room. They can't go and get, fun photos with their friends and, with these props and these wacky costumes and all of that stuff. And so I think that I see it from my kids, actually. There's this kind of distaste for bringing in technology. Like my daughter will visibly bristle if you're talking about a video. She would much rather hear you describe it than watch you pull out your phone to show it. And I think that's emblematic of to be honest, a healthy attitude of being present. And I think that live shows, underground venues are back. And because remember, there's a whole generation that was trapped in their rooms during a pandemic, and now it's time for them to go outside and play.
And do something. Which leads me to the night attack that you have. Now tell me something more about...
Oh, yeah. So, all the way back. So one of my bits of advice that I give folks is find a safe place to be bad so you can be good. There is no being good without being terribly bad at some point. And so the first time I learned that lesson was after winning a couple of those TAOM trophies. It's like, great, everyone who I know, who I respect, did street performing, because it's very, very hard, and because you'll get raw, authentic feedback from the audience, right? And so you learn to do the right things, not because you wrote them down on a page, but because, oh my God, this is the move someone does right before they throw something at me, or this is the face they make right before they hurl this insult. But now I know to say this first. And then you eventually evolve into the shape of it. And then likewise, I noticed even after Scam School launched, that I needed to develop the skills of speaking extemporaneously into a mic. And so I started doing the BB Live show back in the day. And that, we have guests on and talk about magic. And that became NSFW on the Twit network with Justin Robert Young. And after a few years of that, I was like, we should do like a pay-per-view bonus episode. And Justin was like, what if we called it a comedy album? And then we put it out there and made it the lowest price we could, 99 cents as a digital download. And I was riding my bike and the phone rang and somebody from Billboard magazine was trying to sell me magazines, I thought. And I'm like, why are you calling? And they're like, and who's Justin Robert Young? I'm like, what are you even talking about? And there was an awkward pause and they said, you have the number 4 comedy album in America.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what? And so once we knew that 99-cent downloads counted, you better believe we instantly got to work on a very good Night Attack 2, Enjoy the Garden, for $1.99. And that one hit number 1. And then we did a follow-up, Night Attack Live. That hit number 1. And then we went independent and called the show Night Attack. And then Justin moved out, and now we call it Great Night. And it's about to find its new job to do. Again, like the whole world is wobbly, and it's fascinating because I read the comments and there's a frustration that people they're like, I liked the way it used to be. And I kind of just lovingly want to say, I liked it when Dan Aykroyd was on Saturday Night Live too. I liked it when Eddie Murphy was on Saturday Night Live too. But you know where we are? We're today.
Yeah.
And I understand the anxiety, and I think we all feel it. You know, this AI wave is a strange thing, but I do know that the fundamentals seem to work out in the long term.
Well, with the Night Attack, as I recall also, that didn't you send out some emails encouraging all of your listeners to go and vote this as number 1 or something?
We did some targeted strikes. Yeah, we did some targeted strikes. What was interesting, all of this was inspired by, of all things, the Ron Paul presidential campaign of 2008. Ron Paul was a fringe Republican candidate, and they knew they were probably not going to be, before Bernie Sanders had that energy. A lot of Bernie supporters before that were Ron Paul supporters. They were the scrappy upstarts. And so they said, look, all the politicians are asking you to give them money. Here's all we're saying. Everybody give Ron Paul $100, but do it on this one day. And then we will make the news, because nobody in the history of politics has raised $1 million in one day. And by God, that's exactly how it worked. I was like, ain't no reason that couldn't work again later. And so as Scam School came out, there was because I had a polished stage show, the number 1 show on the Revision 3 network was Dig Nation. And so I did a 15-minute opening act beforehand. And around the third of these shows, it was a crowd in New York, and I knew all of these were the most hyper-connected people out there. And I said, hey man, how great is it to be part of this new media revolution, democratizing, down with the old guard and so on. I was like, let's look at the top 10 of iTunes. Oh, NPR, Oprah Winfrey, 60 Minutes. That looks like a bunch of old media guys. Why don't we pull a prank? What if we all subscribed to Scam School at the exact right moment? And so I had everybody follow me on Twitter. Honestly, I didn't know if any of this was going to work. I just wanted to see if I can get more Twitter followers at the time. But we arranged so that on 6 p.m. on June 6th, 2008, everybody would hit subscribe to the high definition and low definition feeds. And because of that targeted strike, it hit number 7 and number 3 overall out of all of iTunes. But at the time, it was high five. We blew up the Death Star at the end.
Yeah.
But I hadn't yet realized how strong social proof is. Because Scam School was a good show, and because people were giving it a chance, because it was in the top 10, what I didn't count on is a week later, 2 weeks later, it was number 4 and number 8, but it was still in the top 10. And I held on to that social proof idea. Then later, when we did a similar thing around the phenomenon, there's a societal trend with the phenomenon of 50 Shades of Grey, right? E.L. James's 50 Shades of Grey was number 1, 2, and 3 of the iTunes book charts. And so it's like, well, what if we made a fake romance novel, fake erotic fiction?
I remember this.
We had all of our fans. We're like, look, we're going to write the first chapter and the last chapter. Everyone else, just all you need to know is that the main character is named Brianna Young, and that each chapter she goes to a secret underground sex club called the Diamond Club, and then you just write about an encounter.
Fill it in.
Yes. And so we filled it all in, and then we made our pitch to Reddit. We recorded a little 2-minute video saying, we think this is interesting and weird. If you think it's worth 99 cents to, deliver on one thing and nothing else, then great. And enough people did. We ended up selling 28,000 copies of that book.
Wow.
This is before the Wall Street Journal counted ebooks as real sellers. It would be a bestseller nowadays.
Wow.
If we had done it nowadays. But what was funny was I didn't think about the fact if they're in for 99 cents, they're all the way in. So they're giving it 5-star reviews. And then you see the wave of under customers also bought, you would see all of my books, Andrew Main's books, very clearly our crowd.
Right.
But then the 1-star reviews came in because of course some people were like, wait, this was a prank. And then, but my favorite were the 3.5-star reviews where they're all like, not very good on plot, but it did deliver on what I wanted. And then the best part was seeing the customers also bought evolve into nothing but smut all across the bottom. We had pulled it off. We had created yet another cheesy romance erotic fiction book.
There are so many different things that you have been doing, and what are you still doing then right now? I mean, with Scam School and Greatest Con and Night Attack and everything. What have you got that's currently and like consumes your day?
Yeah. So right now, if you tuned in live, we'll see how long people put up with it. But I'm going live every day mainly because I suspect live is the future. Because if for no other reason, kind of like that talk radio thing, it's very hard to do. It's very hard to speak nonstop and have something interesting to say and do anything for an hour straight and be handling hecklers in the chat and be handling technical glitches and hangups and all of that stuff. Because it's hard to do and because people want to hang out with other humans, I suspect it'll be valuable. So I'm continuing to do that. I've been calling it office hours. I refuse to commit to anything other than I'm showing up. If you have any questions, I'm here for you. But meanwhile, in terms of general arcs, Scam Nation now it's coming up on a 20-year history on that channel. The property got pitched in 2007. So that's a big back catalog. Lots of stuff to revisit, especially because now my daughter Josie, who made some appearances as a kid during the pandemic days, now she's a full-blown teenager. She's 18 and in a rock band and willing to learn. And she likes magic fine, but she doesn't love it, which to be honest is perfect.
Yeah.
So now the show that started off as cool cutting edge magic guy at the bar is now old dad tries to convince his kid that he used to be cool. Okay, boomer, which I am absolutely here for. I love it, right? Whereas meanwhile, Modern Rogue seems to be trending towards it's still kind of curious, chasing whimsy, trying to find interesting, quirky things. But I think a lot about that scampocalypse. I think a lot about that hockey stick wave of fraud that's coming. And so I've started my security awareness training, social engineering keynote, the one I did for South by Southwest, TED, internationally, and even at the 2 blocks away from the White House at an all hands meeting. I don't know if I'm supposed to say government's weird. Anyway, I'm very proud of it. It's a very good keynote.
An NSA thing.
Yes. I didn't say which 3-letter agency. You mean National Speakers Association?
Yeah.
At any rate, I'm starting to do more of those. in the security awareness training space, and that feels like an urgent thing right now.
Certainly does.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. What unique angle I'm able to take on it.
What is your real passion that you want to continue to pursue? I mean, if you had to kind of get rid of some things and focus in on one thing, what would you be working on now?
All I want to do, I don't know what it is about turning 50 that flips a switch. All I want to do is mentor younger people. Mm-hmm. All I want to do is teach them everything I learned. I'm dead serious. If you want a fast track right into authentic help, just catch me live and ask me a genuine question. Ask me to look at your channel. Ask me to look at your reel. Suddenly I'll drop everything and I'll spend 30 minutes helping.
Mm-hmm. That's something that you really like to give back. Well, I guess it's kind of like being a good father as well, to your kids.
Well, and to be honest, you know the story of that letter that I got from Teller, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to relate that again, but yes, that's a great story.
Yeah. So when I was 19 years old, I went and saw Penn and Teller, and I made a joke. I handed him a 3 of clubs and said, "Make it out to my bastard son." And that got a laugh. And we talked very briefly, and I was like, "Do you have one of these newfangled email addresses?" And he said, "Well, I don't, but give me yours, and maybe I'll be in touch." And then at some point I was on his mailing list, but I wrote him a letter in a sassy way, titled Fury, talking about how mad I was that because he got there first, I didn't feel like I could do the magic I wanted without looking like a ripoff. Mm-hmm. And he wrote back this unbelievably thoughtful 4.5-page essay that began with the line, "My dear bastard son, it's about time you wrote, my boy. Now calm down." And just literally the blueprint for the next 25 years of my career. Mm-hmm. It was extraordinary. And that kindness resonated so deeply with me that I feel a magnetic pull to pay that forward.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like. Somebody has done something for you and that you want to pay that forward, and you have a catalog already of things that you have accomplished that you can certainly do that you can share with other people from here.
Yeah. Now whether or not people want to hear what I have to say, I have no idea. But certainly that's what excites me.
Well, as we are talking right now, we are in your studio, and I was with Nick, and I came to your Founders Day last year, and that's an annual thing. And tell me something about Founders Day and what this compound is that you've created out here.
Yeah, so
in Austin,
we're sitting on 7 acres of what at one point was a nudist colony. At one point was a martial arts Qigong studio. Qigong is basically picture Tai Chi, except for you believe you have the force and you're actually controlling things with your mind. And this was the preschool where the most notorious false arrest in the Satanic Panic Texas history was. So Satanic Panic was when overzealous prosecutors would get kids talking, and kids would make up fanciful tales or whatever. A couple named Dan and Frances Keller, I think. They were falsely imprisoned. They served 17 years before the state of Texas said, "Whoopsie doodle, who wants $1.7 million apiece?" Fully exonerated. There's a story on it out there. But at any rate, this is the property where nothing happened. And so we built this as a studio. And then as we were renovating everything, we got to a point where I was like, how many of you guys want to have a presence here? And I, quote, put it out to the universe as like, who wants to be a founder? And so I'm looking at over your shoulder, there's a giant brass plaque with 999 names of people who chipped in some bucks. And I said, who wants to buy a rock? And then I was like, by the way, who wants a rock? And then half the people were like, just no. But at any rate, as a thank you to the founders, we had opening ceremonies on April 9th, 2019. And it was very important that it be that day because I had done my homework and I knew that 5 years after that would be the total solar eclipse. Mm-hmm. So I started having a Founders Day picnic, which the very first one had to be called off because of a pandemic. But every year in early April, we set a Guinness World Record one year for the world's largest cotton candy sculpture. And then we had the comedy show this year. But last year, 2024, we had a concert with the entirety of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, timed down to the exact second, so that when the last line, "But the sun is eclipsed by the moon," was played at the last chord, the sun was eclipsed by the moon.
Wow.
It was one of the most astonishing, extraordinary events of my entire life.
Wow.
And so we continue to have itty bitty gathering. So if you write me, I'll brian@schwood.com. I'll tell you all about it.
Also, you mentioned about the comedy thing you had last year. This was really great because that's when I met Matt
Donnelly. Yeah.
Donnelly, and he's got Ice Cream Social podcast he does, and those guys were out here and they did some comedy, and it was just really fun. I think Matt's going to be at some magic convention I saw just upcoming soon.
Yeah, isn't it great to watch somebody just begin magic at a phase where he already had so many developed skills as an improv comedian, and then to see him bring that sensibility to our world, I've enjoyed it so much.
He's Penn's right-hand man on his Sunday school.
Yeah, that's right. Penn Sunday School. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, that he had taken the place of Michael Godot over there and doing that. Then you had another band that played that was fantastic. I started listening to their music.
Oh, Jomo and the Possum Posse. Yeah.
Yes.
Most people listening, just do a YouTube search for Guy on a Buffalo and realize their viral hit began with, they found just the weirdest movie that the more the guy watched it, Jomo watched it, he's like, this is a bonkers movie, took clips of it, and then just sang about what the movie actually had happened. And it was hilarious, and it blew up, and they're amazing.
Yeah, Guy on a Buffalo. That was very funny. Well, again, you've had just a phenomenal career, and still just in midlife right now, and so many more things to yet achieve, and getting a handle on which direction you're going to be going, and maturing as you go. As I say, maturing from the standpoint that you don't have the spiked hair anymore.
Yeah,
that you
much to the chagrin of the commenters. Bring back the spikes, they say.
Is that what they say?
Yeah, I respond with, give me 10 more pounds. We'll consider it.
Really. So the name of my podcast is called The Magic Word, and I always like to close to find out, what is it that is important to you? What's your magic word?
I guess the advice I give everyone is give a gift. That's the way I say every career. When I was on a street corner, I made the mistake of thinking that because I knew I had a good show, I should just tell everyone how good the show was going to be, and then they would stop and I could begin. Nobody would stop because the show had already begun. The show was a man keeps talking about how good his show's going to be. Meanwhile, the lesson that I learned reading David Groves' excellent book, Be a Street Magician, is all he did. He didn't talk at all about what he was going to do. He just put a top hat and put a little bunny rabbit right inside of it. And that little top hat with a bunny in it was a gift unto itself. It's not a very complicated story. It's just a rabbit in a hat. But he knew that 100 people, 200, 300 people would walk past, and those eyes were going to linger a little bit too long. And eventually one person would come up and say, can I pet the bunny? He'd say, yeah, of course. And then once they pet the bunny, he'd spring his trap. He's like, you know the rule though. Rule? What's the rule? You pet the bunny, you got to pick a card. And just like that, he's got one.
Right.
And the show's happening. So my word is gift. Begin with a gift.
Begin with a gift. I love that. Brian, I love you so much, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for making it out, man. Thank you for getting me in before the big 1,000.
Well, it's very important that I do. So thanks again. So for the Magic Word Podcast, that was Brian Brushwood. This is Scotty out. I want to thank Brian for being my guest here today. Gosh, there was so much content that he gave us. And also, if you'll go to themagicwordpodcast.com, there you will find some links to some of the places that he works on all the time, like Scam School and the World's Greatest Con. Also, I've got a link to the video of Man on a Buffalo, which I think was a pretty funny song and a good funny video there as well. Give you a little chortle, if you will. So I am so pleased again that I had a chance to share with you many of the ideas that he had. You can see we kind of bounced around a lot, but golly, how many faces does Brian have that he has successfully excelled at throughout his life so far up to this age of 50. So it's kind of cool that he has shared so much with us, and you can go back and find his digital footprint and catch up on a lot of that stuff, whether it's going to be Scam School or you want to listen to his daily broadcast, or whether you're going to listen to his comedy Night Attack with Justin and Robert Young. Anyhow, it's so much fun, so many things that he had given us here. So thanks again, Brian. I appreciate your time, and I hope that you listeners got a lot out of that then as well. I will also mention, by the way, that I had mentioned during the podcast I was going to go and visit with C.J. Johnson, which I did the next day, and I was asking him about working the college circuit, and he said that a lot of things have changed, and he said one of the things I thought was kind of interesting that Brian, since he's been out of the loop for a while, but he was saying that as C.J. is saying that today it's difficult to try to relate to the youth and to get some of these schools to commit to having the entertainment that they once did, because students so often are just looking at their phones. They're just looking down and not interacting with the stage or with live entertainment or socially, personally. It's actually just socially via the digital content that they're getting. And so he said things have really changed dramatically because of the way that they get their information. So anyhow, I found that kind of interesting. That might be something that is kind of looming over what the future of college circuit entertainment might be. Anyhow, I think that's kind of a wrap here for this week. We got a lot of content coming up over the next few weeks that I know you're going to enjoy. Be sure to subscribe to the pod letter so that way you keep up with what's going on from week to week, and you get an update of who's going to be on next week and also some suggestions from the archives. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember to begin with a gift. This is Scotty out.